Okay, I want to jump around a little bit. Uh, I want to talk about after Hoover's death. Do you remember the article that came out in the Phoenix, the newspaper, about Sonny having called 911, and it was discovered that Noel was an informant? How did law enforcement see this stuff? I want the Patreon people. I know I have people in law enforcement that subscribe. Most of my audience are outlaw motorcycle type people. How did law enforcement Black Biscuits over the case is coming up? I don't know if the indictments have come out yet, but Sonny's in denial. He doesn't believe Hoover's killed. Do you remember that whole
Well,
thing?
to back up just a little bit,
Okay.
the closest that I ever got to Sonny as far as a criminal charge was that there was a Cave Creek member named Dan Danza, Dirty Dan, that I
Sure.
became close to, who was, I mean, that was a dangerous cat, man.
Right.
He was a tough guy. I was trying to get a gun from him, and he's like, I got a gun, but I can't give it to you. I'm like, I can't sell it to you. I'm like, why? I'm a gun runner. I try to acquire guns. I'm taking them to Mexico. I'm holding this one for Sonny. Sonny can't have a gun, and he's left it in my control. And I was like, oh, like I'm one step away from the Sonny Barger pistol, right, as a prohibited possessor. I never got to it. I
Right.
never got there.
And
That was as close as I sniffed.
You never
on
got
it.
there because you didn't pursue it, or Dirty Dan protected Sonny, or both.
Dirty Dan protected Sonny, and I ran out of time.
Ran out of time. Uh, you know, Noel and I got in a little. This A&E series came out, and I got some messages from Noel. She said, "Stop telling people I'm an informant." She was an informant. She got $1,000 a week from the FBI. Correct or incorrect?
I cannot confirm that. If I could, I would. I
Okay.
can't.
All right.
I will say this. I was aware that, and you probably know more details about this, that Noel got hurt in some kind of fight with Sonny.
She did, yeah. Sonny threw her to the ground. She said, I can't move, call 911. Sonny called 911. Instead of hanging up, the police took over the call, and he talked to the cops for 20 minutes. And he said things in that conversation that were questionable, he said that Noel tried to run him off the road. Are you on drugs? Well, I'm not. Inferred that she was. Do either one of you have a gun? Well, she's got a gun in the car. I don't have a gun. And I think he was trying to protect himself
Yeah.
from, getting any type of charge and, being in possession of a weapon. But
My personal knowledge was that Noel had become incapacitated, however that happened.
Right.
Sonny calls 911 and ends up having a conversation with a law enforcement officer, which, is a no-no in club life.
Right.
Now,
True.
like to what level or to what extent or how big a violation that was, or if there's any explanations for it, like I don't have that answer.
It caused a lot of controversy in the club. And what's really interesting is Chico Mora is the one that started that whole thing. He sent the article to New York. New York sent it to Washington. Washington brought it to me. And said, "What are we going to do about this?" And, people wanted some sort of closure to it, and that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to bring some closure. Of course, Sonny thought I was trying to run him out of the club, which that wasn't my intent.
There was
at
a
all.
handful of guys, and again, I said, all these Hells Angels that I crossed paths with were alpha dogs, were pipe hitters. There was a handful that, like, I absolutely would not turn my back to. They were, like, scary dangerous. Chico Mora was one.
Right.
Dirty Dan was one. Doug Wistrom was one. There were some guys that, Mel Chansey, I met Mel in New York,
Right.
and didn't have a big overlap with him, but I was like, man, this is a dangerous, dangerous man.
Do you? Okay, the case is over. What's your departure from the ATF? I heard all types of rumors. I heard your house got torched. I heard there were allegations that you did it. What's Jay Dobbyns thinking now? Here, I risked my ass, and now you're done with it.
It's like I said earlier, I thought that I was very important, and they made it a point to remind me how unimportant I was. I thought, like, where's my parade? Like, I did something no one's ever done. Where's my parade? Threats start coming in. My true identity is exposed through discovery and reports and whatever. Threats start coming in. Murder contracts are farmed to the ABs. Chico farmed a contract on me to an AB named John Teachins. An MS-13 member testified saying, like they're floating a hit list around the yard, and your boy Dobbyns is greenlit. You better keep an eye on him.
And who do they tell this to?
They're telling this to investigators.
Investigators, okay.
And it's coming back to me. ATF wants nothing to do with it. Nothing. They told me, look, you're on your own. These guys are so massive. Like, where do you want me to start? Where do you want us to start investigating this? You need to figure this out on your own.
At that point in time, regrets?
Well, the threats extended to my wife and to my kids, and that's where the regrets really came in, because my wife and my kids, I signed on for this. No one ever held a gun to my head and said, hey, you're going to go work undercover on this case. But my wife and my kids didn't sign on for it. They just wanted a husband and a father, and I was failing them. I had failed them miserably.
How do you fix that?
Through time, hopefully. Through trying to live a better life. By trying to acknowledge and admit my mistakes and apologize for them.
And,
I was a terrible husband, and I was a terrible father. And that is a humiliating statement to make to an audience. I don't know.
Do you feel reconciled? Are you still on that path?
No, I carry daily a lot of regret and a lot of shame for the things I did to my family. Even when I was physically present, I wasn't emotionally or intellectually present. I wanted to be smoking and joking with George. I didn't want to be spending time with my wife and my kids. I thought I was saving the world, and my own family was falling apart.
I've always had the position that when cops try to infiltrate the club, it's a job. It's a dangerous job. I don't consider, and I think you've probably seen my posts and you've heard my public statements before. I don't consider anybody in law enforcement. I never call them a rat. That's their job. They're doing a job. Tony Tate, that guy's a rat. Crash from Ventura ratted on. He's a rat. I mean, these guys that ratted on you. What do you say to the people out there that are mad at you for infiltrating the Hells Angels in the manner in which you did? What's Jay Dobbyns say to them?
Well, first of all, I understand it. No one likes to be deceived. No one likes to be betrayed. Anybody that's ever felt that knows that it hurts. So I understand that. Quite honestly, the Hells Angels, in the universe of crime, the Hells Angels are involved in a very small amount of that. There's traditional street gangs, traditional organized crime, domestic terrorism, international terrorism, foreign gangs. So people say, man, why'd you spend all this time and this effort and this energy? That time and effort and energy and money is being spent across the board, not just on the Hells Angels. Those cases get attention, and they didn't get attention. Black Biscuit didn't get attention because I was so amazing. You know why it got attention? Because it was done against the Hells Angels. It was done against Americana. The Hells Angels made that case sexy, not me.
Well, let me ask you this then. Would you concede that, and at times I see you on TV, just like, you see me on TV, I see you doing, and, I got to tell you, I get aggravated sometimes. I don't see the club as a criminal organization. I see the club as an organization with criminals in it. But sometimes I get the impression that you think that the whole reason for the Hells Angels to exist is to commit crimes, and it's a criminal organization. I just don't see it that way, Jay. I was in it. I was immersed in it. You were, although you did come around the club, you were still an outsider. And, I lived it for 40 years. And, we just talked about the bike riders earlier. There was a golden era in the Hells Angels and in that whole outlaw movement, including the Banditos, the Outlaws, the Pagans, everybody. And there were people that took advantage. But as the club as a whole, do you really, in your heart, feel the Hells Angels is all about crime constantly?
If I've said that, or if I've given that impression by what I've said or written,
You have to me.
then I apologize for that, because and I own what I say. I don't take back what I say.
Right.
But I don't feel that way. I met plenty of Hells Angels who weren't involved in crime, weren't murderers or rapists or gun runners or drug dealers or extortionists or any whatever you want to put on them. The opposite is true. I've actually, I don't get credit for this, nor do I want any or deserve any. I've promoted the Hells Angels. I've said, man, these dudes are the baddest cats on the planet.
You absolutely have. I won't argue
I
that
haven't
point
minimized
with
them.
you.
I haven't tried to punk them or reduce them or anything. I've said they are the top of the mountain. They are the kings. That's why everybody's adversarial.
Do you still believe that?
100%.
100%. Okay.
100%.
Now, you heard it here first. Now, listen, all joking aside, how do you... Okay, I know what we do in the Hells Angels when we see somebody not conducting themselves properly. And I think there's got to be some parallels. What do you do in the ATF if you got a rogue agent or you got somebody going outside the guidelines? Certainly, you don't compromise them publicly, but what do you do? Do you go to your supervisor? Do you go to him? How do you handle that in-house shit?
I don't know the universal answer to that. I know my answer.
Okay.
I experienced rogue agents. I experienced corrupt agents. I experienced criminal agents.
When you say criminal, define it a little bit.
Criminal in that...
People want to know.
I'll give you an example. My house is burned to the ground.
Okay.
There are legitimate, viable, credible leads that indicate the Hells Angels had a hand in it, or not proven, but leads that need to be investigated. Those criminal ATF agents who were in charge of that world built a task force with the explicit intent of framing me as the arsonist of my house, thus someone willing to murder their own wife and their own kids by fire. Their objective was to put me in prison.
And for what reason? Personal grudge?
I wish I had the answer to that. Jealousy, hatred,
So-
animosity.
So let me ask you this. So 1984.
And nothing happened to them.
Okay.
To answer your question.
All right.
What happens to them when you do that? Nothing.
Okay. 1984. The ATF is going around telling people the Ventura Hells Angels is going to supply weapons to terrorists. You know the story. Okay. I come up with, a counter narrative. We're going to support the Olympics. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Turns into a big publicity thing. We're fighting it out in the media, and I'll pat myself on the back. I wind up kicking the hell out of the ATF, as far as publicity goes. And been taught by some of the best branding companies and whatnot how to control the narrative. Somebody throws a hand grenade in the clubhouse. I felt in 1984, and I feel to this day, that it was a rogue, it wasn't a directive that came down from the ATF. A rogue agent threw a hand grenade in that clubhouse. There's a spoon off the grenade laying in the doorway of the clubhouse. I have an investigator tracing numbers, and it was stolen from an armory in Akron, Ohio, the same town, the ATF unit that had come out to do the Olympic security stuff.
Okay.
Possible the ATF did it? Am I crazy?
I'll give you a two-part answer to that.
Okay.
Historically and personally, regardless of the level of criminality of either an individual or a charter or whatever, I found the Hells Angels to actually be pretty patriotic. That at least love the patriotism element of America, in spite of like not wanting to live by society's rules or
Sure.
laws. The big picture of America, I found them to be like have a patriotic vibe about them. With regards to whether or not a law enforcement officer, an ATF agent, like threw a grenade into the Ventura clubhouse, and there's like you're claiming that there's evidence,
Circumstantial
like
evidence.
identifying evidence
Right,
of
right.
that device. It goes back to what I said earlier, and it applies to you like it applies to me. It's not what you know; it's what you can prove.
Okay.
My automatic defense of that is going to be to say, man, George, that didn't happen, man. There's no
Right.
way that happened. Like, we wouldn't do that. I can't make that statement because I don't know. In 1984, I was a senior in college.
Right.
I don't know. The people that I worked with, the people that I was close to, wouldn't have been capable of that. But, man, I don't know.
Right. Okay. What was Jay Dobbyns' biggest case as an ATF agent? Was it the Hell's Angel case?
Well, it was the biggest as far as attention and publicity, and like I said earlier, not because of what I did, it's because who it was done against. The Hells Angels brought attention to that case.
It's what's interesting is when I was in Spain, and you're going to relate to this, I think. When I was in Spain, the company over there didn't realize that even though I was no longer a Hells Angel, my name is forever attached to the Hells Angels. And I think Jay Dobbyns' name is attached forever for the Hells Angels.
Well, yours in a good way, mine in a bad way.
Well, nevertheless, what they say, any press is good press. They were just amazed at how powerful that brand was. They were just blown away. This production company, the stuff that would get in the papers. I mean, it would circulate all over Europe. And now you got one up on me because you're a Times bestseller, New York Times bestseller list, right? So tell us about your book. What made you want to write the book? And I haven't read it. I got to be honest with you. Not that I wouldn't or I won't. I just haven't got around to it.
It dovetails with what I said earlier. I'm getting overwhelmed by threats, by death and violence threats, and ATF's telling me, like, we're not going to help you. You're on your own.
This is because you're no longer with them?
No, I was still an agent. I was still on the
How
job.
the hell could you be on your own?
Good question. That was my question. Like, wait a minute, you're gonna leave me? You're afraid of these guys? There wasn't a supervisor in ATF that had the balls to just go and find George or find Sonny and say, hey, whether these threats are true or untrue, let's pretend they're true. Like, our guy is off limits. Like, do not touch him. The blue wave is gonna crush you guys. No one had the balls to come and knock on your door and make that statement and say, back this down. So
I find that really interesting because I know in Chicago, they had what they called with the FBI, with the Chicago office, they had a family values arrangement. Families were off limits.
well, Joe Pistone.
Agents, yeah.
When Joe Pistone was receiving threats, the FBI knocked on the heads of the 5 families and just said, "Man, like our guy's off limits." No one from ATF. I'm not saying that no one from ATF had the balls to do it. They didn't have the balls to do it or the intention to do it for me.
Were they mad at you?
Yes, but I left ATF. I wasn't fired. I wasn't terminated. I got into a
Okay,
battle
that was
with
going to
them.
be my next question.
Yeah, I got into a battle with them, and I stayed on the job. I was like you guys don't get to tell me when I'm going to leave. I didn't do anything wrong. I retired.
Did
on
you
my
enjoy your
terms.
job a little too much? Do you think that bothered some of the...
I loved my job every day. When my alarm clock went off in the morning, from the day I got hired to the day I left,
Now,
I loved my job.
Now, I heard there was a point in time you weren't real fond of writing. Did that change?
I was never very good at it.
Okay. Do you ride?
I have a bike. I don't ride it. But you know what? I never portrayed myself to be something I wasn't. I never portrayed myself
Well,
to be a biker.
it's what's interesting. there are Hell's Angels, and I'm not going to say them because everybody's salivating which but there were Hell's Angels, very status high Hell's Angels in the club, and they didn't like to ride. It wasn't that they liked the brotherhood, and they had custom motorcycles, but they didn't like riding 200. I'm a down and dirty rider. I would ride across country. I rode to Ohio to a party one time, to Cleveland.
If we had an extended trip, I would use my debt collector cover story. I'd say, like, look, I'm going to go pick up some money in Ventura. I'll meet you there. And I'd throw my motorcycle on a trailer and get it close and then rub some grease on my face and pull up and give the impression that I rode there.
You know, it's interesting you say that because in my book, Marked, it's a fictionalized account of my life, and there's a undercover ATF agent in the book. And I mean, I didn't know that, but that's how he gets from back east to Cleveland to California in a truck. He's riding with another agent, and he gets out, throws some gas on his shirt, throws some dirt and oil on his face, and rides in the last 50 miles.
I was never a great rider, and firsthand, you got 20, 25 guys riding 18 inches apart at 80 miles an hour, and then they come out here to California, start splitting lanes. No one's laying off the throttle.
It's a skill.
And I was,
Granted, it's a skill.
I got to the point where when I felt like I had solidified myself as far as being believable and trustworthy, I was telling my handlers, these guys aren't going to hurt me. They will defend me if things break bad because they trust me at this point. What's going to happen is I'm going to drive this motorcycle into a telephone pole.
Right. You're trying to keep up.
That's how I'm going to get hurt.
Yeah, you're trying to keep up.
There's guys, that can stick their pinky finger in a socket and tell you if it's 7/8 or 15/16.
Right.
Like, there was one point I was having some problems with my gearing, and I told one of the angels, I'm like, look, this is not my thing. I twist this and it goes, and I step on this and it stops. When it won't do that anymore, I come to you. Tell me how to fix it. Well, let's pop your derby cover. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm supposed to be in this world. I don't know what a derby cover is. Okay. So he hands me a screwdriver and says, pop that derby cover off. And, like, I'm actually going around the motorcycle, and he's like, warmer, warmer, colder, 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 warmer, warmer. Oh, that's the derby cover.
Were you concerned about being compromised?
I didn't lie about who I was.
Okay.
I never professed myself to be a
because there's a lot of
mechanic,
guys. I mean, we had a member, we've had old members that were concerned and weren't very good riders. We had young members. I had a young member, a good friend of my little George. I took him to Washington alone. I had to go up to Washington, to Spokane, to a meeting. I took him with me, and by the time he got back, he knew how to ride. But it was a slow ride up there. But
I will tell you what I admired. Like all the patches I met. And I don't think I'm out of bounds saying this. I admired what true believers they were. That there was never a doubt in my mind that if someone had a Hell's Angels top rocker and a death head, that they were going to be willing to die for that club. That it was their religion. And from the outside looking in, I didn't agree with everything that was taking place. I was there because of that, because there were things that were being done wrong. But I admired that level of commitment.
Right. Let me ask you this. Did you ever think you joined the wrong organization? That ever cross your mind?
I'll tell you this. I reminded not every day was miserable in this. Like, I had fun. I laughed. I had fun laughing with the people that I was investigating. But I reminded myself every day of what team I was playing on. And I said, if these guys find out that you're deceiving them and that you're running a game on them, they're not going to say, like, you're not welcome anymore. Someone's going to hit you on the back of the head with a baseball bat. And in the process of warming up to this case, the one thing that stood out to me is that the Hells Angels, when they confirm that someone has deceived them or betrayed them, they'll kill their own. Right. And that I took that pretty serious. I took that with
that's
the ultimate
that's
seriousness.
Commitment, Did your female agent partner, she ever take you aside and go, Jay, you're running too hard, man. What's going on here?
There, I was popping uppers during the case.
What uppers?
Like,
everyone's gonna go. You didn't ask the question, George. What uppers?
Yeah, just like energy pills and
Okay.
and
Ephedrine shit you can get in the liquor store. and all that.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I remember at one point, like I took a handful and we were getting ready to get on the bike, and she's like, "Man, you're out of control." And I was like, "I've been out of control for a long time, well before you showed up here. Like, let's go to work."
Was some animosity going there? Or?
Yeah, but I'll tell you this, like that.
Did she protect you with the superiors? Let me ask you that.
Well, I'll say
And
this.
then I'll
there was
give you the floor back.
There was a specific event where, like, I'm being challenged, I'm being confronted over the cover story, and Jenna leaned into me, and this was a new agent, a female agent. She leaned into me, and she said, "If you're going down tonight, I'm going down with you." Like that's who that was. That was her mentality.
Now, I'm gonna